Last time on Journey to the West, our heroes were bamboozled by a counterfeit Thunderclap monastery cunningly disguised by the devious demon Big Ol' Eyebrows guy. While the rest of the pilgrims were cruelly captured, Sun Wukong found aid from an unexpectedly jovial source. Budai, the laughing Buddha, lent him his skill in conquering the wayward creature and freed the pilgrims to continue westward, only to find a kingdom suffering under the terrifying cruelties of the demon known as Jupiter's rival, who had kidnapped their lovely queen. Sun Wukong once again came to the rescue, and with the aid of the imprisoned monarch, he managed to overcome the demon and deprive him of his sacred treasure bells, returning him to his true form as Kuan Yin's golden wolf and freeing our heroes to once more continue their journey to the west. So our heroes are making their way westward across mountains, rivers, and valleys. Time marches on, the seasons turn, and it's now a beautiful spring day when Tripitaka spots a sheltered homestead just across a lovely little babbling brook. He decides it's about time he started pulling some weight in this whole pilgrimage and insists on doing this round of begging all by himself. Unfortunately, Tripitaka faces an unexpected terror he was in no way prepared for when he learns that this house is full of girls. 7 beautiful young ladies greet him very charmingly and invite him in for a delicious meal, but 3, 2, 1, oh my god, they were demons the whole time! Shocking Tripitaka, but probably not any of us, the ladies jump him, tie him up, hang him from the rafters, and start debating how best to cook him. But before they crack open the crock pot, they make sure they won't be disturbed by shooting webbing out of their belly buttons to seal the doors. This doesn't seem right, but I don't think Tripitaka knows enough about women to dispute it. Meanwhile, outside, Sun Wukong's plot radar is going off, and he notices the gate has been sealed. Uh-oh. Rather than going in swinging, he decides to call up a local spirit for the lay of the land, and he's informed that this supposedly lovely homestead is actually called Cobweb Cave, home to 7 terrifying demonesses who have made it their lair. Ain't that just the way? Apparently, they've set up shop here because there's a hot spring nearby that they can't get enough of, so Sun decides to wait until they unseal the cave for their thrice daily bath. Sure enough, they dispel the webs and trek on over for a relaxing afternoon soak, and Sun makes sure they stay in the water by turning into a hawk and stealing all their clothing. Very tactical. But when Sun returns to the group to move forward with the rescuing Tripitaka thing, Pigsy insists that they can't just leave those women like this. The gentlemanly thing to do would be to go murder them so they don't cause trouble later. Sun is not about to kill a bunch of unarmed naked women in a bathtub, but Pigsy can do whatever he wants, and so he does, charging on in there with rake held high. However, Pigsy miscalculated by assuming that the ladies would prioritize their modesty over all else, including not getting murdered, and is utterly bamboozled when they web him up and streak back to the cave. The girls unleash some insect minions to cover their escape while they flee for their lives, and once Sun clears out the bugs, they untangle Tripitaka, burn the evil lair to the ground, and set right back on the road west. It's not too long before they spot a beautiful Taoist abbey towering in the mountains and head on in to pay their respects. They find that the local sage who calls this place home is busy concocting medicines and other apothecary fixings, but when he realizes he has guests, he greets them warmly and invites them to enjoy some tea. But he's called away from the festivities by his other house guests, the 7 demon women, who sought him out for refuge because they're old school friends who studied together way back in the day. They tell him the terrifying story of how they were just innocently trying to eat Tripitaka so his delicious sacred flesh could make them all immortal, when his horrifying boorish disciple attacked them in the bath and forced them to nudely flee for their lives. When you say it like that, it does sound pretty bad, and the Taoist apothecary is enraged on their behalf. While the girls offer to help him kick their asses, he insists that won't be necessary. After all, the pilgrims don't suspect a thing, and they're already enjoying his tea. So he brews up a fresh pot with an extra special ingredient and offers the round to the crew. Sun notices that their host's tea looks very different from his own and suggests that they swap, but before he can finish that thought, the others chug it down and immediately pass out from the deadly poison. Uh-oh! Sun is obviously horrified and immediately starts swinging, but the 7 demon ladies burst out to back up their buddy and unload their web attack, and Sun has to flee skyward, watching helplessly as the entire abbey is consumed in a massive cocoon of spiderweb. But this is around the time that he connects some dots and realizes that it is spiderweb, and he knows how to deal with spiderweb. He turns his rod into a forked staff, busts out about 70 little duplicates, and starts twirling up the web like it's a load of spaghetti. This unravels the whole cocoon pretty handily, and also drags the 7 spider demons out into the open, their true forms revealed at last. And Sun tells the apothecary that if he wants them alive, he'd better release Tripitaka right this minute and also fix the poison thing. But the apothecary can't get that whole immortality thing out of his head, and cares a lot more about eating Tripitaka than about saving his friends, and Sun is outraged and kind of freaking out in general, so he kills the spiders and attacks. What follows is an epic anime fight, and when the apothecary realizes he's losing, he makes like the anime do and whips off his shirt. But this isn't just for the morale boost. It also reveals that his torso is absolutely choco with eyeballs that shoot lasers, and Sun is ensnared in an inescapable trap of burning light. After battering himself against the beams for a minute, Sun manages to shapeshift into a pangolin and dig his way out, emerging a full 20 miles away away from the deadly light show and immediately collapsing from exhaustion and despair. But just when he's sure there's nobody more miserable in the world than he is, he hears the sound of weeping and a woman appears, lamenting that her husband was murdered, poisoned by that many-eyed fiend, demon lord of 100 eyes. If only someone could travel several thousand miles due south to seek out the aid of the Bodhisattva Pralamba, who is surely the only one who can defeat such an evil, and if only they could do it fast enough that the poison that takes 3 days to kill wouldn't kill their friends first. Sun knows enough to recognize a goddess in disguise when he sees one, but he's not gonna look a gift exposition in the mouth, and he jets off southward to the beautiful mountain home of Pralamba, a regal old woman who recognizes him from his Havoc in Heaven days and congratulates him on his turn to the side of good. Man, you fight through 72 chapters of evil demons and nobody bats an eye, but you wreck heaven one time. Anyway, Pralamba is happy to help, and says for her weapon of choice she'll be using an embroidery needle, which Sun is initially very skeptical about, but she insists it's been refined to perfection with the help of her son, Star-Lord Mao, who you may recall from the Scorpion Demoness incident where he defeated her handily with the help of his true form, an enormous rooster. In the animal kingdom rock, paper, scissors, chickens beat bugs every time, and Sun connects a few dots and decides to let her cook with this one. Sure enough, Pralamba and her embroidery needle have a shockingly potent effect on the many-eyed fiend, and those 1,000 laser eyes get sealed shut real quick, leaving the demon paralyzed while Sun gives the other pilgrims the antidote to the poison. Pralamba explains that the many-eyed fiend is nothing more than a centipede, and Sun reasons that she could probably tame him so easily because if her son is a rooster, it makes sense that she would be a hen. The centipede demon is going to be doing his community service guarding Pralamba's mountain home so she doesn't get any more unexpected visitors with quest objectives, and with that bug hunt sorted out, our heroes can continue their journey to the west. And journey they do, right through summer and all the way into fall. But it's around that time that a massive, terrifying mountain looms over the horizon and an ominous old man appears to warn them that the demon lords that call this place home have devoured countless humans with their own monstrous power and their army of 48,000 minions. Sun says that all sounds pretty manageable, but he does notice that this old man is actually the Gold Star of Venus in disguise, who privately tells him that no, really, this place is legitimately bad news and they have a whole army of celestial soldiers on standby in case they need bailing out. This is a little sobering, kind of a finding a big stockpile of ammo and health packs moment, but Sun has been through his share of demon mountains by now, and besides, he's really strong and cool and badass and stuff, so it'll probably be fine. So he scouts ahead to find out what's really going on. However, the first big surprise is that the army of demon minions have apparently already been briefed about him specifically, and how strong and cool and badass and stuff he is. Even the jobber demons on mountain patrol are keeping a paranoid, watchful eye out for the shape-shifting master of terror that is the dreaded Monkey King. Even Sun's usual strategy of shapeshift to look like a bad guy and then get the info dump from another bad guy hits some hurdles, as the demon he talks to is so paranoid that he almost catches Sun out in his ignorance of their multitudinous anti-Sun Wukong security measures. But Sun manages to charisma his way through the dialogue tree and learns that, unfortunately, the Gold Star of Venus was not exaggerating. 3 horrifyingly powerful demon lords have forged an alliance to capture and eat Tripitaka and destroy the Monkey King that stands in their way. But Sun finds a way to use this to his advantage. After all, everyone on this mountain is already terrified of him, so it's not too hard for him to hype up how overwhelmingly horrifying the devastatingly handsome Monkey King really is, and how it's definitely not worth it for this army of minions to stick around and die in droves fighting him when it's not like any of them will even get a single bite of his boss. After encouraging the demon army to stop breaking their backs for the 1% and seize the means of production for themselves, he marches on into the cave itself to do as much recon as he can. Unfortunately, Sun has fallen for the stealth mission's fallacy, where the further into the evil lair you manage to sneak, the worse it's gonna be for you when you inevitably get found. And sure enough, Sun is in the throne room at the feet of the 3 demon lords when his illusion slips just enough that the extremely paranoid 3rd demon king has him jumped, captured, and exposed. But they're not foolish enough to think mere ropes can hold a creature as terrifying as Sun Wukong, so they drop him into their sacred treasure, the Yin-Yang Vase, an artifact that imprisons and destroys anything unlucky enough to find its way inside. This is not Sun's first deadly container rodeo by any stretch, and he holds his own against the vase's various attacks until it starts chucking full fire dragons at him and he decides he should probably try and escape, which he manages with the help of a delayed blast Chekhov's gun. 3 life-saving hairs he was gifted way back in chapter 15 that transform into a diamond drill he uses to pop a hole into the bottom of the sacred treasure and escape. After retrieving his gear and narrowly making it out of the sealed cave, he triumphantly returns to the gang and recounts his daring escape. And that's great, don't get me wrong, except the mountain is still a problem, right? And those demons are all still alive and really scary. So it's great that he's alive, but Sun didn't really fix anything, did he? Sun's not gonna have his awesome stealth mission besmirched like that, so he takes Pigsy and heads right back in there to kick some ass proper this time. What follows is nothing we haven't seen before. The first Demon King fights the boys, and Sun lets himself get swallowed on purpose so he can get a crazy damage multiplier by beating up his organs directly. Then when the second Demon Lord takes his turn, Sun and Pigsy absolutely humble him, and the Demon Lords agree to surrender and personally escort our heroes through the mountain and to the next kingdom down the road. But this is all actually a ploy by the third Demon Lord, who some years prior attacked that kingdom and ate everyone inside. So the city looks fine, but is now inhabited only by demons going through the motions of a supposedly normal life. And when the crew gets within sight of it, Sun is overwhelmed by the truly horrifying demonic aura that only he can see, and the ambush is sprung. Everyone is captured, including Sun, who discovers that the third Demon King is actually faster than him in the air, and while Sun manages to protect the crew from the Demon Lord's first attempt at cooking them, their subsequent escape plan is foiled, and only Sun manages to make it out of the city to plan his next move. But the Demon Lord's genre savviness strikes again. They know it's only a matter of time before Sun sneaks back in, unleashes some sort of scheme to defeat them, and escapes with his master and co. But he won't do any of that if he thinks there's no point. So the demons spread the rumor that Tripitaka is already dead, killed and eaten the same night Sun made his daring escape. And while Tripitaka is locked up in an iron trunk in a forgotten corner of the palace, Sun hears the terrible news from every source he can find and is destroyed by the grief. He manages to pull himself out of his depression maelstrom just enough to fly to the Thunderclap Monastery, on the off chance that the Buddha will let him deliver the scriptures himself without Tripitaka, or failing that, will free him and let him return to his old life on Flower Fruit Mountain. But the Buddha doesn't do either. Instead, he tells Sun who these demon lords really are. Two of them are the escaped mounts of bodhisattvas, a lion and an elephant respectively, and the third is the enormous legendary bird, the Roc, who is actually the brother of the peacock bodhisattva, Maharaja Mayura. That one is too powerful for anyone but the Buddha himself to deal with, so he saddles up and flies down with Sun to handle the problem himself. Sun is, as usual, on drawing aggro duty, and he lures the first two demon lords into range for their respective bodhisattvas to effortlessly conquer them. The Buddha himself handles the Roc Demon King, who is very reluctant to leave his cushy gig of ruling an empire and all the humans he can eat, but the Buddha negotiates a solid deal for him and the Roc is ultimately hired/defeated. But Sun can't celebrate a hollow victory with his beloved master dead. That is until the Roc admits that this was fully a lie and Tripitaka is fine, just probably a little claustrophobic. Sun is overjoyed and rushes back to rescue the gang, and with yet another mountain conquered, our heroes continue their journey to the west. A few months of uneventful travel later, winter rolls back around and our heroes spy a thankfully normal-looking city to stop in on. No demons lurking among the populace, no ominous aura of miasma looming over everything, just a nice city with only one noteworthy thing about it. Every house they see has a covered goose coop in the front yard. When Sun's curiosity gets the better of him and he takes a peek under the hood, it turns out that the goose coops don't contain geese, they contain young boys. And it's not a fluke or a one-off either. Every house in this beautiful city has a child in a cage in the front yard. Our heroes are, understandably, unnerved, but are told in hushed tones not to ask about the boys. It's not spoken of in this kingdom, but don't worry, by tomorrow it'll all be over and everything will be back to normal. After pressing, Tripitaka is quietly told that the caged boys are part of a medical treatment for their ailing king. 3 years ago, he married a beautiful young lady brought as tribute by her father, an old Taoist sage. Since then, the king has neglected everything in favor of boinking his hot new wife, and his health has seriously declined. But luckily, the Taoist, now his father-in-law, knows the formula for a medicine that will restore the king's health and greatly increase his lifespan. But the key ingredient is human hearts, specifically 1,111 of them, all harvested from young boys. The caged kids are, of course, the designated sacrifices. Living powerlessly under a horrible, inhuman act of cruelty has forced the populace to compartmentalize. Everything is fine here, but every house has a goose coop in the front yard. Unironically, this might be the most horrifying thing that's happened in this book. So this is a lot. But Sun has a plan. They don't yet know whose ass he's gonna have to kick, but there's no way he's letting these boys die in the meantime, so he conjures up as many local gods as he can manage and has them spirit the boys away in the cover of night to some hidden valley where they'll be safe. While the gods play babysitter, Sun and co can investigate and figure out what's really going on here. The next day, Tripitaka has his travel rescript certified by the king, right before he learns that the boys all mysteriously vanished in the night. The king is in despair, but the royal father-in-law tells him this is actually a blessing in disguise, and sign that the gods approve of his plan. See, that Buddhist monk who just left has a heart 1,000 times more powerful than all those boys put together, and if they make the medicine with him instead, the king will easily live for 10,000 years. Sun, who was obviously eavesdropping, flies off to warn Tripitaka and put a new plan in place. Before the soldiers come, he and Tripitaka are going to swap. With Tripitaka disguised as an unusually quiet Sun Wukong, the king's soldiers arrive and march an unusually enthusiastic Tripitaka back up to the palace to ask him politely if he's willing to give the king his heart. Tripitaka is, of course, happy to oblige, but he says they'll need to be more specific. After all, he has so many. To prove it, he carves himself open and starts pulling out a ton of hearts. A red one, a yellow one, a greedy one, a petty one. A whole mess of terrible things all come spilling out of him, but none of them are the black heart that the Taoist wants to see. The king is, understandably, extremely freaked out by all this, and Tripitaka presses the advantage to accuse the Taoist of being the only truly black-hearted person here, and if they'll permit him, he'll happily rip him open to prove it. This is all a bit much for the royal father-in-law, and he immediately skedaddles demon style and takes his daughter with him. Sun pursues, but the demon manages to evade him and escape, and Sun returns to the others to undisguise himself in Tripitaka and catch everyone up on what the hell just happened. After a quick explanation and a nice meal, Sun and Pigsy scoot off to track down that demon and see if they can't wrap this up cleanly to make sure the problem doesn't come back. Upon investigation, they manage to find the demon's extremely well-hidden cave and bust in to kick his ass. The fight isn't hard, but as they're about to do the finishing blow, they're intercepted by a god they've never dealt with before, the Old Star of the South Pole, who flies in and grapples the demon, revealing his true form, a white deer. Perhaps unsurprisingly at this point, he's the Old Star's wayward steed. His daughter turns out to be a fox demon who is killed very quickly, and Pigsy brings her body back to the king to show him why he probably shouldn't have been spending all his free time boinking this lady. The king is very embarrassed and throws a banquet to cover his ass, and then asks the Old Star if he has any medicine that could potentially cure his vague illness. The Old Star says he came here to wrestle a deer, not perform medicine, but he's got some dates he was gonna have for tea, if that works. The king chomps him down and is immediately restored to full youth and health, Theoden style. And Sun recommends that he keep his health this time by exercising a balanced lifestyle of moderation in all things, and maybe the next time he marries, try doing things that aren't boning sometimes. Our heroes are about to be escorted out in a lavish parade when, whoops, 1,111 boys are abruptly deposited back in the city by all those gods Sun called up. And the people are so overjoyed that the gang has to stick around for another month just to handle all the celebratory feasts and grateful gift-giving. And really, there's nothing more in the spirit of the holiday season than that. Our heroes have vanquished terrible foes and brought justice to those drowning in despair. The celebration is well-earned and the moments of peace hard-won, but the journey is not yet over and the story will continue next time on Journey to the West.